Hey everybody, welcome back to rotocurve.com's YouTube channel. Of course, we're going to talk each and every week about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and of course sleeper picks, which is what we're here to talk about today. This is FanDuel's Week 7 sleepers. Every week you see these cheap guys that everybody's on. You see to find these guys that tend to keep their way to the top of GPP lineups. You see these guys that are in the 5,000s on FanDuel and sometimes even in the 4,000 put up big score. So we're going to try to look at these guys and find out which cheap plays could be GPP gems, I guess we could say, for Week 7. First guy at quarterback is Brian Hoyer for the Houston Texans, 6,900. Not a lot of people will be on Hoyer simply because the Texans' passing offense has not been very good. But most of that has been Mallett. So if you look at the numbers overall, Mallett has really struggled, but Hoyer has actually been very good. As you can see, he ranks highly on RotoCurve's fantasy points per attempt, which you can find for free over at rotocurve.com, at 0.59 fantasy points per passing attempt. Now, that's good for 7th in the NFL, and it's actually ahead of Phillip Rivers, who we discussed earlier this week in the quarterback video on how efficient he has been this season. We mentioned before how he faces the Dolphins, and Miami has actually given up a touchdown in every single game this season, so it gives Hoyer a high floor. At under 7,000, considering he'll be lower owned, he makes for a decent play in GPP because I expect him to be throwing a lot against the Miami Dolphins team that is probably going to be favored big time to win. So be sure to take a look at Hoyer as a low-owned option that could be throwing the ball a lot. At running back, I think Christine Michael is that guy that could be the gem, but you have to keep an eye out on that news. We discussed before in this week's running back video that a lot of people are expecting Michael to start, and it's likely that he will start at some point for the Cowboys, as their offenses lack some punch with the injuries to Tony Romo and Des Bryant. There's some Cowboys beat writers and some coaches actually expect this week for Michael to be able to take the reins and just start to kind of unleash the potential that he has athletically. Now, until we see future news that he's going to be starting, he's going to be a little bit of a lesser-owned play. He's very risky considering there are the other two running backs in Joseph Randle and Darren McFadden. But if news does come out that Michael's going to start, he makes for a very good value play at just $5,600 on FanDuel behind that offensive line against the New York Giants team, who's actually struggled as a whole against running backs this season. At wide receiver, I'm looking at Ted Ginn Jr. for Carolina Panthers at 5,300. Ginn faces the Philadelphia Eagles defense, who has actually been very good this season. They're one of the better defenses in yards per play allowed. I believe they're 4th in the NFL in that category. Their linebacker's been playing well. They have one of the better front sevens in the NFL. But the one thing about this team is they have a hole at cornerback, and Byron Maxwell has really not lived up to his contract. That's the one reason why I like Ginn in GPPs this weekend, because at 5,300, you're not expecting too much, but he's a deep threat. He has a chance to beat Byron Maxwell, who struggles a lot on deep balls and actually on crossing patterns, which Ted Ginn can excel at because of his speed. So considering that Ted Ginn will probably see a lot of targets, especially a few deep balls against Maxwell, and considering that Cam Newton will be looking to get him the ball, as that's one of the lonely spots on the Eagles defense that tends to struggle in that outside cornerback position of Byron Maxwell. I think a deep ball or two could potentially lead to a touchdown for Ted Ginn. And at just 5,300, he's going to be low owned, and he makes for a nice stack play if you do decide to go with Cam Newton and GPPs. That wraps up the value picks for this week on FanDuel. There's some sleepers that we'd like to discuss that could help you in your GPPs and potentially be low-owned gems that could propel you to the top of the leaderboards. Thanks for watching, and as always, be sure to give us a thumbs up, rather. Can't get that out of my mouth. And be sure to subscribe, and you can get all the tools you can see here with analysis, a whole bunch of data, and everything's over at RotoCurve. It's free. So be sure to take advantage of all that. And let's make Week 7 a profitable one in NFL Daily Fantasy.